What's up, you guys? Welcome to Gravity Train, the podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping you become resilient against the forces that pull you down. My name is Bruno. I'm the founder of Gravity Trained, and I work out of Honolulu, Hawaii. And I'm on this podcast here with my dad, Cleber.
Hey, I'm Cleber, and I'm responsible for the running and ultra running side of the business. I'm based in Portugal, but currently I'm in Brazil now, and we're here to help you go for the next step in your sport life.
Yeah. Okay. So, the topic of today, I think, is really important for athletes, right? I think today is probably one of those topics that uh there's a really big team on either side. Some people think the more strength you have, the better you'll be as an athlete. And then some people think the more mechanically savvy, or maybe that might not be the best way of saying it, maybe like the more technical you are, then you'll win when it comes to whatever, a sport or something like that. Technique over strength is the topic of today, right? Skill versus strength. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Okay, no, I was just gonna say because I mean sometimes people actually uh, tend to say, okay, well, I don't think the produce force, strength is as important as a skill of running. So, what is at the end of the day? What is it more important, skill or strength? So that's what we're here to discuss. And to begin with, I mean, what is like the strength? Pretty much going straight forward with that is the capacity of produce force. A simple definition, right? And then if you talk about skill, what is a skill? Is the ability to apply force, timing, coordination, efficiency, and no matter which sport you actually applying that to. So that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I want to do a little thing here because when I learned these words, force and strength, it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? Right? Like, what is strength and what is force? Because you just said the definition of strength is the capacity to produce force. But what is force? And
Hmm.
so, for everyone out there, force is the ability to move an object in space. So, either yourself or something else, right? So, for example, like a runner, your strength is the ability to produce power down into the ground to propel you forwards, right? Or down to jump, right? For jiu-jitsu athletes or MMA people, force is your ability to push someone or pull someone, right? And then power, which is also a third thing that's kind of involved with this, power is how, like, basically how strong is that force generation, right? Like when you take a punch, right? The punch has an accumulated amount of power. It hits you, that power translates into force that pushes you either forwards or back or knocks you out, right? And so it's important to know these terms because you might just think, "Oh, I'm strong, because I can lift things in a vertical sense, or yeah, I can just pick up something heavy." But at the end of the day, are you translating it into movements, or not even movements? Like, can you just hold yourself on one leg, right? This is also strength and power. Can you even hold yourself up on one leg, man? Like, so it becomes a
That's
little
hard.
nuanced.
And
Right?
that's
And so it's not
absolutely.
just about, yeah. Yeah, so, I guess we've defined it, and so, I guess the thing now is, like, we go into a debate. What is more important? Is it strength or is it force? I think we need to talk about, like, what are some good qualities about strength, right? Like, what does it benefit?
Well, and that's I like to when you talk about strength. I mean, where you have strength after, of course, you and you know that probably even better than me, Bruno, based on the training that you do. But translating that strength and power when you're running, for example. And it's a pretty, for example, because you said you push running, applying to running, you apply your power against the ground. And you can see this concept pretty easy when you're running on the beach, for example, right? If you're only applying your force, like your power, no skill, and you're running on the sand, you're gonna see your foot actually sinking in the sand because you're not using any skill. And what I mean, how can you? I mean, what do you mean, Kleber? What do you use skill? I mean, running the sand, you run in the sand. No, it's completely different ways of running. When you run in the sand with the skill, you accelerate your cadence, but you also use the jump part of it. You're not only pushing against the ground. Let's see if I can explain myself well. But you use your kind of the spring side of your body. You move forward, but you barely touch the ground. So you keep moving forward and use this technique with cadence, speed, but at the same time, you use some power. It's more distributed throughout your paces. So
Can you
I don't know
explain
if I.
what cadence is?
Oh yeah. So cadence is the speed that you pace yourself. Like you can do like 70 paces per minute. You can do 80. You can do 90. You can do 100. So faster you move your steps. That's the cadence side of it, right? Because you can move vertically. You can move like horizontally, and this cadence and how fast you do that
Awesome.
horizontally.
I like the your analogy of the sand. That's a perfect analogy when it comes to if you have no skill and all you have is power, you're gonna gas out, right? You're
Pretty
gonna
quick.
gas out running. Yeah. But if you have called proprioception, which is the ability to feel your environment. Proprioception is I can feel where things are in space and I can adjust how much force I need to push into the floor to not sink. Does
Yeah,
that make
and,
sense?
and and if you remember, Bruno, when we were running together, I used to call your attention, Bruno, listen to your steps, and that we can feel if you run in the asphalt, if you run in the trails, which I mostly love doing in the trails. Listen to your step. More silent is your running, more technical you are. If you're listening, hearing too much noise, bang, 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 you're using a lot of force, which you should minimize. You should use more skill to be more productive. So you remember that, right, Ronan? Maybe you can
Yeah.
express yourself
There's a
better.
similar analogy. There's a similar analogy in jiu-jitsu where they say you don't want to hear anything when you're rolling. It should
Hmm.
feel just like snakes, just right? There should be no hard stomping. And so what is this like what's happening in our body that we're able to run with no sounds? And that's what a lot of my clients and what I talk about constantly, which is fascia, right? Fascia is how you're able to sense the world around you. Is basically like an extension of your brain that goes on. It's like a layer of sensation that goes. It's a layer that goes over your muscles that allows you to sense your environment. And so if you're training consistently just to be able to generate more force, which then in turn will give you bigger muscles, um if you don't apply those muscles in very if you don't apply those muscles in a way that tests your kind of sensitivity, You're gonna start to lose that ability to do something as simple as run on the beach. You're just gonna stomp on the floor instead of understanding there's only so much I can hit the floor to where I can keep my cadence and then ricochet off, which is I think the word you were looking for is recoil. It's like a spring. You hit the floor and then you
Exactly.
recoil and you become efficient, right? And it's all about efficiency first and foremost. Because the more efficient you can be, if you just add more power, you're going to be you're just going to be better, right? You're going to be able to do more at less of a cost.
That's cost efficiency. Yeah, the cost benefit of doing things. You gotta go the the biggest distance with the least amount of force. So that's actually technique. That's that's a skill that you can get better and better and better.
So
Right?
maybe let's just kind of recap this idea of what strength is, and then what technique is, right? So I've written my notes here, so I'm just going to read off some of these notes. So what strength is really is just raw force. Like how much can you actually push into the floor? How much can you lift? It's just, it's basically like the engine of a car. How much horsepower can you actually produce? That's really all it is, right? It's your ability to kind of withstand wear and tear, kind of at the end of the day, right? The more muscle you have, you can probably withstand some more heat, right? Because you got that padding. Um, but strength alone does not equate to a fast, how do I say this? Strength alone doesn't mean you're a good driver, right? You might have the right engine, but then you need to have the skill to know when to use that engine. And that's when technique comes in. And so technique is more of, which I think you just talked about earlier. It's about timing. It's about like proprioception and interoception. Let me explain the difference. Do you know the difference?
No, I don't.
So interoception is my ability to
Excuse
know
me.
where my hand is in space. So if I raise my hand here, I can tell you like, my hand is probably like eye height, right? So it makes a little off, right? So my interoception is a little off. But so proprioception is how I sense the world around me. So if I bring my hand out to here, I can kind of uh I can understand like spatial awareness, right? My hand's like a foot and a half away from my desk, right? And so for you to be a good driver, which we're talking about skill, is your ability to know like I can't push too hard because then the sand, I know the texture of the sand and I know it's gonna pull my foot deeper than I want it to. And so it's something like that. But it's not only about runners as well. It can be just man being able to just go down a flight of stairs, you know, or get on and off the floor, right? Your ability to, how do I move my body in a way that makes me come up, right? How do I come up off the floor? That's a skill, but skill alone isn't going to help you. Then you need to have the strength to apply the skill. And that's where it kind of gets kind of cool because it's like, I don't like these like binary things. It's not a one or the other. You have to have two, right?
And the beauty of it, Bruno, what I like about this general um, discussion, skill and strength, is that you can use these concepts for any sport, any sport. And I believe at the beginning too, you actually get in the zone, which we talked about in previous podcast. I mean, this you got to think about it. You got to think about, am I doing this right? Am I using too much force for the skill that am I using too little skill, too much force? You got to think about this till it becomes like automated and can be applied for biking, for swimming. I mean, if you're doing a triathlon, you're gonna see me, especially swimming. It's incredible how skill plays on that sport, you know. But I'm just talking about it. It is so important.
Yeah, I have an athlete that I train, and she's we're training together. So next year she can do the Molokai Canal, and the Molokai Canal, I think it's like 30 kilometers or something like that.
Hmm.
Let me see how much. Let me actually look it up right now. Give me a second here. 32 miles.
Oh shoot! Yeah.
Okay, so she's so she's so she's training with me to be able to do the Molokai Canal, which is 32 miles of swimming. And we focus on, man, symmetry of power. So it's like, can she produce the same amount of force with both arms, right? And does she have a tendency to lean? Because if you pull with one arm, you're gonna start to just kind of go this way, right? You're gonna start to go to one side. So it's all about distribution of power, and then also knowing what muscles. Once you get fatigued, you're gonna start to overcompensate and use muscles that are gonna fuck up your swimming, right? So then you might not even be able to finish it because you're using the wrong muscles. So for her, it's technique first, and then once we both understand this is the muscle you should be using, and then the symmetry looks good, then it's just, let's just add a bunch of weight and just increase your resilience, which is what we talk about too, which is uh we can maybe get into this later in the podcast. But for now, let's just take a little break right now. We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back here now. So we did talk a little bit about the strength and skill, but let's dive a little bit more into both subjects. So talking about the strength, so we have several items here that we can talk about. At early stages of training, you gain a lot when you focus more on strength. I mean, especially if you're returning from injury, this is, I mean, absolutely important because you're fragile. You got some kind of injury. I mean, strength, force, you got to build that up because you don't want this injury to happen again. Of course, if you focus too much on that, you're going to be low in skill, high in force. So you also be overdoing on this. So, but I'm just trying to be more precise. I'm getting confused in here. You also build robustness in margin for error. What does that mean, margin for error? For example, if you're running uh, and you made a mistake in your route, you actually going to have to run more than you thought you needed to run. If you have to climb more that you thought you were gonna climb, you're gonna have to have some extra power. So, and that's exactly what it does. I mean, might be humidity in your run, might be rain, might be the heat. You know, it may be you miss the hydration. So that's why the strength, power, when you do this, you're actually building this robustness that I'm talking about. And then, Bruno, you
I think,
can actually talk about the the key point for the strength or what add to what I just told.
yeah, I want to dive a little bit deeper into, like, you're talking about strength here, and you really made me think about what it actually means to be strong and some examples. So, for example, you know, a jujitsu white belt has no idea of skill, has no library of knowledge, but he's motivated and he knows he's strong. So you can get away with a lot just with strength. But I feel like we're being a little bit kind of closed-minded with the definition of strength, because it's not only muscular strength, but it's also cardio strength, cardio endurance. How strong is your heart? How strong are your lungs, right? Like, how often are you actually training uh to go to the red zone in your cardio? Like, how often are you like maxing out your heart rate? So your muscle, the muscle of your heart is just like any other muscle of your body. You have to train it so it gets stronger, and so it's able to afford to be stressed. And so, you know, things like what you said, building robustness and having that margin of error, it's not only the muscular fatigue, but it's also the cardiovascular fatigue, the lung fatigue. I didn't know this, but there's 11 pounds of your body is wrapped around your lungs.
Mm.
And if and when you get fatigued, those muscles they stop helping you breathe efficiently. And so being able to
Mhm.
develop the muscle of your lungs is super important too for you to be able to have better cardio, right? When you're competing or even just going up a flight of stairs, man, like something that's simple, you know, going on a walk. Like, you know, it's not just about the muscular endurance. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, but you know also, Bruno, that the cardio resistance, that's the first thing that you overcome. That's the first thing that people think, okay, well, I'm becoming a better running. I'm becoming more resilient. Yes, you are in terms of your heart rate. You can, you can resist a little longer. And that's the first adaptation that you have, the cardiovascular. So that's the first thing. And then people make a mistake because you can run a 5K. You're not going to run a half marathon because building muscles, building strength, it's a total different animal. So just you get confused just because oh, I can breathe, I can run.
Right. Okay, I think I lost my dad there for a second. So we're just gonna pick up where we left off. So we were talking about cardio, and how, oh yeah, now I remember how people feel the effects starting first cardiovascularly, and how it's totally different than training your muscles, right? Is that
And
what we're
so
talking about?
that's what it is. So because you have adaptations, different adaptations in your body. You have a heat adaptation, you have a cardiovascular adaptation, you have your muscle. You build your muscles there. You have different techniques adaptations. So that's why people sometimes might get confused that you're becoming more resilient. You are in one side, but not on the other one. So when you talk about strength, force, that takes way longer to become strong. But a cardiovascular is the first thing that you notice that you become better as you train. So that's
Oh,
the
that's
was
so
the
interesting.
point.
All right, so we talked about strength and when it wins basically, right? And so when does skill win? What are some things that you get out of training skill specifically? And so we'll talk about sports because me and my dad are both kind of athletes here. So at the highest level or at the higher levels, because we're not professionals, but at the higher levels, it's so important that we become efficient and that we actually do things with the intent of lasting a long time because we love our sport. And so at a higher level, technique becomes more important than strength. So that's one thing. Because of that, what we gain from that is we're able to push away the amount of fatigue we feel, the level of uncertainty and chaos that we experience, and the kind of that unpredictability. Because our skill is at a higher level, we're able to interact with the unknown with more confidence because we have that toolkit, right? It's similar to like a musician that knows all the scales, that knows all the modes, and is familiar with like music structure. He's put into like a an unknown. He's put into an unknown environment, and he can just kind of figure it out. Same thing with a mechanic that knows his shit. you can give him a car that maybe he's never worked on before. He can kind of figure out what things are. So that's sort of the beauty of training your skill set really well. You become efficient with your output and at a lower cost, really. But at the end of the day, you cannot focus on one or the other. There's this false sense of of black or white. Like, oh, if I get stronger, people that are listening to this right now, I mean, it's kind of obvious where we stand in this, right? But it's not like you need to be stronger or you need to have only skill. You need to train both, right? And so if you train if you train strength in isolation, meaning you do more and more weight, but then you don't test yourself. And this is what I wanted to get to. So sorry to ramble on for so long, but this is kind of a callback to before, which is this idea of resiliency. Resiliency is a scale, okay? It's a spectrum, right? A spectrum of first, okay, I can lift 50 pounds. So that's at the lower end of the spectrum. At the higher end of the spectrum is I can lift 50 pounds while I hop on one leg. That's a different kind of strength. And that's strength with technique because you have to have precision in your hips, in your ankle, in your abs, in your shoulder. And so this is what we're talking about. If you train only in isolation, then you miss the opportunity to develop strength, to develop skill, sorry. But if you just train skill, then you miss the opportunity to increase your resilience, to use that skill under stress. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when you talk about the skills, strength, when I talk here, I'm always thinking about running, right? So when I'm training someone, and we talk about this, the training, your program, it starts, of course, at your base running, but the first months, you're gonna really focus on your weaknesses, right? At the end of the training, you're gonna be more focused on the skills that you're gonna need for that particular race. Or it is a hill, or it is descents, or going up, or just flat and long runs. Beginning of the training, you're gonna focus on your weaknesses. So this is important, and technique comes later. So if I had to say something, okay, focus on strength, focus on your weaknesses, whatever that is, because people train for different things and they're weak in one or other things. So that's what would be my take on this particular subject.
Yeah. When I think of training, like my mind is on the regular everyday person, right? Not just the athlete. And so it, um what I see from training a lot of people is they come from no base. If they come from no base at all, then when they train, they're both training their skill and their strength at the same time because they're coming from, from basically nowhere. But then at some point you level off and you have a good foundation, and then it becomes a choice. Do I want to get stronger or do I want to get more skill? And then this is where
Hmm.
it gets a little complicated and where people might get a little confused because there are so many ways to go about getting to a better place, right? And so that kind of leads us to how do we integrate the two? How do we basically, which is a good word or like a good sentence, how do we express strength through skill? That's basically what we're trying to go for, is just be really good at being powerful, but in a skilled way, right? All right. So what does that look like in practice, right? So I think first and foremost, the biggest thing is your coordination. When you're lifting weights with the intent of expressing skill, how coordinated are you to generate power in a way that looks almost symmetrical in your body. You want things to look symmetrical. And if they are asymmetrical, is that an intentional thing, right? First and foremost, I would definitely say how well coordinated you are. And I don't really see a lot of people coming in coordinated. And so that's definitely something to look at. And kind of a segue, what does that even mean? And how do you even get coordinated? And that's through something called the kinetic chain, okay, or the fascial lines, okay? Your muscles, they're linked on your body through a web of gel. Basically, there's multiple layers of gel on your body that link certain muscles together. And when you train in isolation, you don't respect that structure and you tell your body, forget about training, forget about talking to all the muscles together, talk just to one muscle. Okay. It's almost like if you listen to a band and then the whole band is playing together, but then the keys are louder than everything else. You're not going to want to listen to that band. It's just, it's too off. Right. So things need to be together. So that's like a something very important that you got to focus on when you're developing this expression, strength expressed as skill. I love that sentence. And then lastly is kind of what we just went through is when you use that coordination and then knowing how to link muscles together, it's the rhythm that you put them in. Can you do it fast? Can you do it slow? Are you able to change directions in a way that's, and as in a way that's kind of like that looks beautiful to watch, right? You look at athletes and they're just so graceful. They know how to move their body in a way that looks really cool and it looks beautiful to watch. And so that's kind of my goal for everyone that trains is you want to be able to move beautifully, and feel good until you age and not look like, like a shrimp when you're 75.
Yeah, no.
you know?
It's interesting, Bruno, when you say that, like when you train by isolation, it's like when you talk about like the fast twitch, slow twitch muscle fibers. I mean, you say, oh, okay, we're gonna train one kind, then we're gonna train the other kind. That does not exist. Both of them are always in movement all the time. So either more or less, but they're always interacting with your movements. So there's no way of isolating anything. So you're missing out always on something if you try to do that. In
Yeah.
a strength, for example, if you train with the sticks, right? Coordination. I mean, you need coordination to climb with sticks, right? You're running mountains. I mean, you gotta coordinate the power and also the movement that you're doing with your leg, with your hands, with your body, your head, your ribs. So everything. So it's not just like, power here, power in your legs. No, it's your whole body. So this is extremely important that you brought up here, Ron. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say a caveat because I'm not saying that that's just the only way to train, right? If you have an injured, let's say your pec, right? Let's say your pec is weak for some reason, right? I'm not telling you, oh, don't focus on the pec and focus on the whole like chain, which would be like your chest, your delts, your biceps, the forearms, the muscles in like in your ribs and your abs, because that's the pec is attached to all those muscles. So you might listen to me and think, oh, I need to train my whole arm. Sometimes you need to get that muscle up to date with the strength of all the other muscles and then start training them together. But I think that's where people kind of mess up is they do just the first part. They just bring the muscle up to where everyone else is, and then they just go back to training each muscle individually. So no, you train it so everyone feels the same, and then now you train it together. And I feel like that's where I don't see many people talk about that or train like that at all. Or if they do, they think it's like a gimmick and they think it's like fake, you know. But I mean, if you talk to really good physical therapists, I mean, these guys know what's up. These fascial lines are real, and it's really up to the individual to do their research and believe it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're getting to the end here. I feel like I talked more than I wanted to. I really wanted to hear your thoughts on this, but I guess maybe the signal and just what it is. You're in Brazil too, so I know it's later. It's like 2 in the afternoon here right now. So I know you're tired.
It's 9
So we're
p.m. here.
closing out.
Mm,
Yeah, it's what is it, 9 PM?
9 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's late, dude. It's late. I can't expect you to talk like I am. I'm fucking
You're
I'm
starting your day.
tired. Let's
I'm wrapping
go.
up over here. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm freaking halfway through the day. It's raining like crazy here right now.
Holy moly.
Right? Yeah, we just had the Honolulu Marathon this morning here. 10,000 people showed up and it's freaking dumping, man. The world is falling right now. There's so much rain. It's beautiful. And I live in the middle of the valley. I live like all the way in the back of the valley. So it already rains here a lot. And now it's raining a lot, a lot. But
Wow.
whatever. But
Yeah.
well, so we're just gonna yeah, so let's just kind of close this out here. So so far we're on the same page, you and me, that there is no better. You kind of have to train them together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah. Is there and at least that's kind of the takeaway for me. What's like your final thoughts on this?
I mean, make sure that I know I love more running than I love strength, but I mean, you can avoid training strength up to a certain point, but you just can't live without it. If you want to really progress and get your skills to the point where you're really gonna get the benefit, the best out of it, you got to incorporate the strength to your training. Okay, how much, Kleber? How much training? I mean, I usually put like 3, 4 times a week. I add strength. How long? I mean, 30, 45 minutes for my athletes. But even though if you wanna do maybe less, you can do every day. But this is a progressive thing, where you are as an athlete. You can even do every day. I mean, I highly recommend to have 1 day rest during the week, but you gotta have at least 3 times a week. You gotta have the strength training and incorporate it to your skills, to your daily training. So
Yeah, it's that strength expressed as skill, right? Not just weights for just to say you trained, right? But apply in the context of what you need it to be
yeah,
useful for. For runners, it's like hamstrings, glutes, abs, calves, right? For jujitsu, it's like a lot of back, a lot of legs, man, like quads, because you're always in like a crouched
in
position,
core,
abs.
right, Bruno? In core, and
Yeah,
even
massive.
for yeah, and for ultra marathoners, like I mean, you need arms as well, more muscles than you usually would need for a regular runner. There's a lot
Yeah.
more involved. I believe we did talk about the mental toughness and so many other things, but today is about the skill and the strength. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and then and for the regular everyday Joe too, you know, people coming straight out of work and sitting for 10, 12 hours a day or standing for 10, 12 hours a day. It's like those people need rebalancing of the muscles and you know, we in a sense we all need kind of the same thing. It's like more leg strength, more core strength, more back strength, and you know, be able to
yeah,
pull stuff. It's a massive thing. All
absolutely.
right, so I think that kind of covered it. And we will come back next week with a new topic. I got some ideas I want to share with you, Dad.
All right.
Maybe go into a different direction. But that's it for today, folks. See you guys next week. I'll see you
Thanks so
next week,
much.
Dad.
Awesome to be with you here.